Hello and welcome to the Animation Kimmunication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode is appropriate for all ages.
Hi everyone, welcome to, I think if my math is correct, this is one of the first normal episodes where we don't have the Halloween overlay on, probably like the second at this point. So spooky season is over, but not of this recording, so we're in this like weird limbo of like time travel, so it's fine. So I'm KP as usual. I do the podcast and then YouTube stuff every once in a while. Please watch, like, subscribe, comment. Yeah. And then Lauren's here, of course.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
There's the rare occasion that I'm not here, but it's like
so far it's only
99% of the time I'm here.
Yeah, so far it's only happened once, so we're good. See if you can find it, people that care. But you got to do, Lauren. You got to do, of course, like the meme.
Like, wait, what?
The meme, of course, the Street Fighter meme.
Of course.
There you go. Okay. I was like, I know you know it. Like, it's a big meme. Anyway, so this episode is about LGBTQAI. I think I got them all. Plus
LBGT.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So representation, so like, we'll define all the things for you because it's confusing for normal people, I think, because there's a lot of different ways and talking about representation in the media in all forms, so yay. So with me, I have, Mikaila. Say hi, Mikaila.
Hello, friends. Hello, strangers. I am Mikaila. I've been brought on to talk about LGBT representation, and by the way, it's LGBT, not LBGT, like I originally said, like a idiot. But yes, I was brought on for this podcast. I assume because I'm a trans lesbian, and I was brought on for my take on the prospect of LGBT representation in modern media as compared to past media.
Yeah, and we just did an Owl House video, so you can go, watch it. It's not just, like, as you're listening to this, but, we did one, so you can...
Yes, after that, go watch the Owl House video that I guest starred in, and after that, go watch the Owl House videos I did over on my channel, Mikaila Turkleson.
You don't need to plug those, Mikaila. They're doing fine.
I know, but I just like it when people watch my stuff.
I made a tweet the other day. It's like, so much creative passion, -5 views, because, like, my views aren't great right now. But anyway, it's not important. And then also we have, with us, Round Trip, who I'm going to call Pete because I refuse to use horse names. So, like, out of spite. So say hi, Pete. What do you do on the internet? And where can people find you if they want to after they hear this?
Well, hey everyone, this is Round Trip, but I will be called Pete, apparently, during this lively discussion. What I do on my Round Trip channel is I basically summarize every episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic in a very terribly drawn way. I use MS Paint and text-to-speech voices, all the worst tools of the trade, to recap every episode. It's called MLP in a nutshell. It's very stupid. If you like it, you can go to Round Trip on YouTube.
So,
What the hey?
What the hey? Yeah. So Round Trip I found is like, I'm just generally cynical about fandom stuff in general, but he is like one of the purest like beans I've seen, and like I notice, and he's slowly been following me everywhere, and I'm just like, I see you in my DeviantArt, Pete. I know you're there. So I think it's kind of funny.
See,
thank you.
We're calling you Pete, and all I can imagine is Pete from Groove Troop. Or however he talks, I don't know.
You're a cat now. You've been a furry confirmed. Anyway. But anyway, so we have news segments. We have some fun stories today. Can I do the first one, Lauren? Because it's like the best.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So the first story is unsurprisingly Jeffrey Katzenberg's take over the world. Did not work out very well. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, okay, let me backtrack. So Jeffrey Katzenberg used to be a Disney executive back on the Renaissance age of animation, and he is known for kind of being a dick, among other things, as well as not understanding the process and kind of being like, let's just put stuff out there and see what happens and just keep on, like, which are all generally bad things you should not do when you're making art in general. So I don't know if he's changed. I never met him. These are just things that have been reported. You can watch Lindsay Ellis's video if you want more like instances of Katzenberg just kind of not being nice. So comparatively, Michael Eisner is known to be a lot nicer, but sometimes. Anyway, we'll do Disney history and politics later anyway. So he founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and the third guy who had money. They made Shrek, and that did well, obviously. He was on DreamWorks for a while, then he sold it to NBC, and then he just, like, disappeared for a little bit. I remember one time I had lunch at DreamWorks because that was really neat. But anyway, so I had lunch at DreamWorks with one of my friends, and they were just like, "Where's Jeffrey Katzenberg?" And they're just like, "Oh, he sold NBC. He's off on some yacht somewhere." So that was what I was told. So I didn't know he sold NBC. I didn't know he sold DreamWorks at that point, but I just should have looked it up. Anyway, also note at DreamWorks, at the DreamWorks studio, not only do they have a Shrek sign that says, like, private property, but they have Shrek on it, Shrek and Donkey and Puss in Boots. But when you go on the DreamWorks lot, not only do they have, like, it's beautiful, the DreamWorks campus. Not only is there, like, this pretty fountain in the middle that looks, and they got the DreamWorks, like, logo, like, made of greenage and stuff, and, like, all sorts of fun stuff. Foliage, yeah. They have this really big, life-size Shrek statue, just like right, it's like the first thing you see. Lauren, have you been on the DreamWorks campus? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I actually have not, even though, like, I've always, like, being in LA, I've always lived really close to it.
Yeah, okay.
But I know exactly what it looks like. So
okay.
I just haven't been there myself.
So anyway, there's your interesting fact for today. I miss LA essentially. So anyway, so I guess Katzenberg was like, "Hey, we're gonna do Quibi," which is what, like, it was like a thing that you could watch quickly on your phone or something like that. Like, do you know
vertical
more about
videos,
it?
I think, like on your phone or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, they were
Anyway.
like two versions. So I did like the concept of where there was, like, they kept advertising for this one movie where the perspective, depending on whether you were tilting your phone, however you were tilting your phone, it changed the way the movie looked when you were looking at it. So what I thought was cool about it was almost like I guess you could say like a thriller type movie, and you're keeping track of where characters were with, like, if you flipped your phone one way, it turned into the GPS saying where the characters were, if help was on the way and stuff, and you flip it the other way and it's them in, like, capsized in a car and they're trying to survive kind of thing, where it's almost like flipping camera angles, which I mean, that's a really cool idea. Thing is, it was put onto Quibi.
Yeah, that sounds like watching a movie but with extra steps. So, you know,
it's interactive that way.
It
But the problem, it's just, yeah.
I like the concept, but
It could work.
Yeah,
somehow.
but I feel like
maybe.
maybe that's more video game like. Sorry, Lauren, did I cut you off?
No, you're fine.
Okay, cool. So I think the summary is they put like $2.6 billion or something in trying to make it work, and then it didn't work. So everyone sarcastically retweeting comments and like, "Oh no, it's that thing that happened." So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't really know like too much, but I feel like he just is like, let's get this good idea, and because he was at the right place at the right time in his career, then at certain points people are like, oh, it's the guy from Disney. That sounds good. And then speaking from a guy from Disney, Lauren, why don't you do the next one?
Well, we kind of talked about it in the last in the last podcast, sort of, is that Over the Moon, as of now, is now released on Netflix, which, to briefly fill you in, Glenn Keane, he's a Disney legend, incredible Disney animator and visionary. He teamed up with Pearl Studio, Netflix, and obviously Netflix, and as well as Microsoft to make this movie happen. It's basically like a musical space fantasy kind of thing based in, I guess you could say, Chinese folklore. And it looks really just absolutely stunning. I haven't had the chance to sit and watch it yet, but based on what I'm seeing of people and their reactions to it, is that a lot of people really love it, and they said maybe it was like the right movie that they needed at this time. And so I think that's actually good that it's striking that kind of chord with people.
Cool.
Yeah, and especially in a rough year, if it's making people feel better, then you know what, that's a good thing.
Yeah, always. Is it on Netflix right now?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot about that. I saw the trailer and I was like, this looks really gorgeous. I have to check this out.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to check it out. Like I may try and watch it tonight because I've been meaning to watch it. I do have another headline that is that it's movie relevant, and I think it'd be really cool for everybody to know, because it only transpired, I think, within the past half day. Is that clips? Actually, a trailer completely dubbed in French though, for the Tom and Jerry live action animated hybrid movie. Apparently made its debut in theaters. The trailer showed, based on what I could see, I actually could see a lot more potential in this. It's not like what they did with Woody Woodpecker or Chipmunks or Smurfs. It's not like they took these anime characters, try to put them in the real world and have them look like the real world, because then that's
So it's like Space Jam.
Yeah, it's like Space Jam. It's like Roger Rabbit. It's like, and it's actually, if you remember the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie, it's kind of like that too, because based of what I can tell on the clips is that they applied a 2D, it's almost, I guess you could say they paper manned it. They put a 2D layer and cell shading and stuff on a 3D model, and they animated it, the 3D models, as they would a cartoon. So animating with smears and squash and stretch and all that stuff to make it look like it's almost like you can't tell what's hand drawn and what's a model. So the interesting thing is just, I trying to find where the 2D ends and the 3D begins, because some of it may be just really smooth animation. I'm trying to tell it, but then again, the footage that we do have, it was just somebody who's like, I didn't even expect to see this in theaters, but I tried to grab it with my phone, and it's like not in the best quality.
Speaking of Rocky and Bullwinkle, just a little fun little bit of trivia. When I was starting to do videos on YouTube, I had the idea of having a contrarian character that I could use to help get my points across whenever I would need one. And for some reason, when I sat down to consider it, I've scrapped this idea since, but when I sat down to think about it, the voice of the contrarian always came off as Bullwinkle. So I thought if this idea was going to get off the ground, I would just call this contrarian, to which I would have to combat my ideas with, Bullshit Winkle. But Mikaila, why this or this? Well, Bullshit Winkle, I'm glad you asked. There's Bull my Winkle.
Yeah, and they established basically all of the characters' connection to the universe, and yeah, establishing that there's the TV show, and that Launchpad in particular is a huge fan of the show, so he's able to use what he knows from the show, and also of course Darkwing is also a fan, or at least the actor that plays him. is that they both are like extreme nerds about the show. So so they're able to apply what they know from the show and from all of that to how they fight crime and stuff like that, which I think is hilarious. That they're like, oh, this is just like episode 22, scene 15, like, it's great.
That's just like 101 Dalmatians too.
That is true.
I don't know if you saw that, but that was good.
Yes. And but I do like how they applied it here, and also Gosalyn's connection to everything. I love her personality in this. I love how they took what was established in the original and they ran with it even more in this one. She in a way almost kind of makes me think of MJ from the new Spider-Man movies, just that kind of spunky,
Yep. I've seen her design. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, so question time. So, Lauren, do you want to lead the questions, or you want to switch, or?
We'll alternate. You can begin if you'd like. If there's anything in particular you'd like to begin with.
Cool. So, Mikaila, generally, why don't we just open up with the what is a gay question? Like, why don't you describe like your experience, and then just the general spectrums, because it's also like there's also cisgender and not, which if like you are born in the right sex or you're not, and then
might I take it from here?
Yeah, you got it. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. I didn't want to hear. I just didn't want to listen to you fumble too hard. Anyway. Yes, hello. As I previously mentioned before, I am a trans lesbian. That puts me on the LGBT spectrum. And what that is a spectrum of preferences and identities that trying to find a best way to put this. Sorry, now I'm fumbling over my words.
It's a lot of letters.
Yes, it's a spectrum of preferences, identities, and livelihoods that differentiate themselves from cisgender or heterosexual. So basically, the main four anagrams.
Acronyms.
Yeah, well, the main four letters mean lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans. Now, transgender takes a little more time to explain because it's not as well known, but it basically means you identify as a gender that is different from the gender you were assigned at birth. I am a trans woman, which means I was labeled as assigned male at birth, or AMAB, at birth. But around 2017, I realized that, hey, maybe I'm not actually a guy like the doctors said I am, because what the fuck do the doctors know? And I've gone to 3 other doctors who concur with that, and I've been on hormone replacement therapy to help me transition into a body that I'm comfortable with for about 2 years now, and I think it's going swell.
That's good.
But
GG.
I guess,
Awesome.
yes, but transitioning like male to female is not the only way you can transition. You can transition from AFAB, assigned female at birth, to like a trans man. You can be considered non-binary, where you don't abide by the strict male or female identification. You could be gender fluid, which means what gender you identify as kind of depends from like moment to moment or day to day. You could be agender, just go by like no gender at all. And there are several other ways you can explore this spectrum of transgender. But yes, then there's what the vast majority of people are, which is cisgender, where they identify as the gender they were assigned at birth. And cisgender people, cisgender heterosexuals are the only group not covered by the LGBT spectrum, because it covers lesbians, covers gay men. It covers trans people. There are other acronyms you can, there are other letters you can add to the acronym, like over on, like ACE, questioning. Questioning's one of them. That's what the Q is for. It's not the other word. Trust me. There's the N for non-binary, the P in the end, and then there's like a plus for all the other ones. But yeah, that is what the LGBT spectrum is, what it covers, and what is going to be one of the topics for this episode's discussion.
Yay, we did it. So, and then what was my other question following that? I don't like, so something I'm kind of curious about that might get too deep. We don't have to spend too deep into it, but like, can you explain how does the transition process work when you start taking hormones and that kind of thing? Because I think that's something a lot of people don't really know about, or it's not public knowledge versus just identifying as one or the other, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is correct. And to accentuate that point, I'm a trans lesbian, which means I identify as a girl, and I'm attracted to girls. On the topic of transitioning, hormone replacement therapy is certainly an option. Some people take it, some people don't. I have been on hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for 2 years now. It has involved taking 2 tablets of testosterone blockers and 2 tablets of estrogen. Now, you can go with the tablets, or you can go with a patch, or you can go with an injection. I went with the tablets because they were just easier to keep track of. I didn't have to wake up one day and it was like, oh no, I forgot my injection meeting. But yeah, no, it puts all the thing on me. And as I said, the effects of hormone replacement therapy will depend on what gender you're trying to transition to. For me, hormone replacement therapy has been a godsend because it has helped me develop a more feminine body.
Yeah.
It has helped with fat redistribution. Okay, basically my fat's going from my fat's no longer storing in my stomach, it's storing in other places, helping add some curves to my frames. Estrogen has, honestly, it's helped ease my temper, because before HRT, I was very testosterone heavy, which was not fun, trust me. But yeah, it's helped with my temper. It's helped with my skin. Oh my god, my skin is the smoothest it's ever been. I do keep up. I do try to stay hydrated. I do try to moisturize, but estrogen certainly does help. It's basically the fountain of youth.
Oh no,
it has actually helped me thin out. It has actually helped thin out my body hair, but because my hair is very dark and I'm quite fair-skinned, it hasn't thinned as much as I would like. But there are ways we can overcome that. So yeah, HRT has been doing wonders for me. And once I am through with electrolysis, which is an FDA-approved permanent hair removal from my face, and then I have corrective surgery, I will have fully completed my transition.
Neat. Yeah. And
Sorry, was that too long?
No, it's okay. No. I was just
I want to make sure I didn't cut off anybody.
You don't have to go too deep into it, especially if it's just explaining vaginas and stuff. This is not a health channel. But yeah, and then something I learned that I'll just throw out there before we move on to actual media stuff, and we'll have Pete kind of throw in his his representation side of things, which we learned today. Is I wanted to also distinct that from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, being trans is based on a identity, and I think people get that confused a lot with just dressing and drag, and those are two separate things, right, Mikaila?
Oh, absolutely. Trans women and drag queens are two very different things. If you've seen any contrasting information on that from RuPaul or something, don't listen to him. Trust me, RuPaul is garbo. That's the hill I'm willing to die on right this now. Drag queens, they're fine. They aren't trans women, but they're fine. RuPaul specifically is garbo. And if you think that's a contentious point now, wait till we get into the meat of our topic. Trust me, you're gonna hate me and not want me on these podcasts ever again.
She's making too many people mad. We gotta put her in the bad corner. I'm kidding,
Well,
obviously.
Okay.
All right, and then Pete, why don't you talk about your specific heritage? Because I think it's interesting, especially considering that Americans are always not nice to Native Americans historically. So.
Yep, that's very true. So I am a member of the Navajo Nation. My mother's side of the family is from that area and from that heritage. And my dad's side of the family is white, immigrants from elsewhere. But I'm a member of the Navajo Nation, and my parents didn't really like. My parents were not really big on teaching me about that part of my culture. So I kind of missed out on a lot of stuff. But I did get to hang out with my family on my Navajo side, and my grandfather actually was one of the vice presidents of the Navajo Nation, and I got to look at a lot of the internal workings of the Navajo government. So, and I'm working on learning the language that I wasn't taught as a kid. So it's sort of a strange, like, mixed identity kind of thing. And looking at how I'm supposed to react to that is hard because my family, never really taught me about all that stuff. My grandmother on my Navajo side, we call our grandparents. Let's see, your maternal grandmother in Navajo is called your masane, and she and my aunts on that side have taught me a few things, passed down over the generations. So being Navajo and looking at the media landscape and how how American Indians or Native Americans, either one's fine, how they've been treated over the years is it's hard to like take in.
It kind of sucks from what I can tell.
It does. Like there's some cool stuff that has happened, but like the vast majority of American history is just like, what do we do with these natives? We got to get them out so we can build our railroad and stuff.
We need to move them further to the west. Just keep on moving them.
Okay, here's a line. You guys can stay on this side of the line, but we'll take the other half. And then they change the line a few years later. And then a few years later, they change the line again. And then they find gold, and they find water, and they find whatever. Like, oh, no. Keep moving. And then eventually, basically, the entire country was colonized. And that did not eliminate Native Americans entirely. Like one of the things that kind of makes me sad is how a lot of people and a lot of like museums or a lot of history discussion often says like, oh, the Native Americans used to live here, or oh, back in the day the Native Americans used to do this, and like referring to us in the past tense. Like, despite the U.S. government and the Canadian government's best efforts, we're still here. That's something that is important to repeat, I guess, to anyone listening.
Yeah. Why don't you we'll touch on briefly, but like, so where is your tribe like natively located? Do you have any traditions you want to talk about, or any other like customs that you guys do?
So the Navajo Nation is the largest Indian nation in North America, in the U.S. And the land that we currently have, that is considered the Navajo Nation by the federal government, is pretty big. It's slightly bigger than the state of West Virginia, and is located in 3 states, in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And it is a sovereign nation. We have our own laws. We have our own police. We have our own our own courts, our own president. We have our own elections, and stuff like that.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, so, and that was a hard-fought battle to get that. The U.S. government has really evolved in its policy towards Indians. Initially, in the days of Washington and Jefferson, it was more like, these guys are savages and we need to get them out of the way so we can do our progress. But eventually we were welcomed into the country. It took until like the 1900s for us to get citizenship. And then, actually, one surprising thing is that Richard Nixon, he's not known as a great president in general, but like he was one of the best presidents for American Indians, because he sort of changed the policy from like, screw you guys, to actually let's let these guys like run their nations as they want.
They got first dibs, right? So
right. So yeah, we are.
It's like, there you go. The more you know, people.
So Nixon did one good thing, at least.
Nixon also did like I think he did a lot of environmental
That's true.
activism.
He started the EPA. That was
yeah.
Kind of a weird mixed character there. But yeah, there's still a long way to go. A lot of indigenous peoples, a lot of indigenous women especially, who have had crimes committed against them. Like a lot of those cases go unsolved because just the government doesn't put the resources in. So that's a huge problem. Water rights is a huge problem. A lot of sacred sites that are really important to many indigenous religions, a lot of those are in danger. A lot of those have not been returned. And of course, millions of treaties have not been like enforced. So yeah, there's a long way to go, but the U.S. has definitely evolved.
Yeah. And I think from my understanding, the more people are educated about how horrible we are to, or like we are, quote unquote, but like how horrible the U.S. and just other like foreign countries are to native peoples, more people are pushing for social reform. Yeah. So, and then we can also get into the whole thing about like how, we steal artifacts and then we have them at museums hundreds of years later, and then like someone's like, hey, didn't you steal that? And they're like, no, oh wait.
No, we're taking care of it. That's what we're doing.
It's taking care. It's fine. So, like go look up the history of Mount Rushmore specifically, because that's a hot topic lately. That's like a whole like FU, as well as like Mount Rushmore in general is just, I think, is a stupid concept.
Yeah, you are not the only one. Oh man.
We can have nice, just make it a national park, call it a day, everyone wins. So, all right, so we're going to talk about media. Yeah. So, I guess from both of your guys' understanding, what have you seen as far as just representation from your own sides of I guess culture being honored or dishonored in media, and like how has that changed over the maybe just since you've been alive or since you've been keeping attention? So I guess Mikaila can go first because she probably has more, I imagine, because whoever is more it seems like whoever has a prominent push in Hollywood, like there's a lot of like Hollywood's known for being very friendly to all the gay. We love all the gays, especially like same things as like, we're not going to talk about too much about Jewish culture because there's a lot of Jews in Hollywood in general, like that gets a lot of representation where I don't think it would if it was another way. And then people are like, oh, look at Jewish culture, we learned about it, oh yay, I'm sad now. So essentially, so Mikaila, how has it been evolving from your perspective, and what do you like and what do you dislike about it, about that evolution?
Well,
brings out essay. I will.
Mikaila's manifesto.
Okay, so I am going to do my best to be very thorough with this topic without necessarily having to cite my fiance.
That sounds like a good PC way to do it. Not that your fiance is not PC, but you know what I mean.
Yes. Actually, we should have brought her on because she's trans and native.
Oh. You get 2 for the, it's you and Pete had a fusion kind of thing. Anyway, go ahead.
God. Okay, so
Steven Universe joke.
Okay, so speaking of Steven Universe, the LGBT rep in modern media, as I see it, it's certainly more prevalent than what we've been getting since I was a wee little lass who did not know she was a wee little lass. But prevalence quality it does not make. Pretty sure I said that wrong. But yeah, even if it's like technically more prevalent, it's not as prevalent as it could be, and even then it's not great. I think Steven Universe sadly is a good contender for how to do it wrong, because it cloaks a lot of stuff in allegory and metaphors. Because like for the longest time, the only characters you could argue or confirm as LGBT were monogender lesbians from another planet, which lends itself to the problem of othering. Now, othering is a problem when you present LGBT people or any minority as a non-human race. This stuff is very prevalent in stuff like Star Trek. It's prevalent in Warcraft, and in terms of LGBT rep, it's mostly prominent in Steven Universe, and that didn't get fixed until the later seasons. But even then, that representation came in the form of bit characters we only ever saw like once or twice before never seeing them again. Now, you could argue one also bad way to do it is Legend of Korra, which saved it for the very last 2 minutes of the very last episode. I've heard people say, well, that was before gay marriage was legalized in the US, and they just did what they could, so they have to throw them a bone. I think it was mostly done just to give people something to talk about for the finale. Because when you think about the Legend of Korra finale, what's the thing that comes to mind? Is it the giant mecha battle that was there, or is it the 2 girls holding hands at the very end? Because when it happens at the very end, that's what you're gonna most remember. Yeah, that's not a great way to do it. I've heard that the Legend of Korra comics are better because it actually portrays Korra and Asami as a couple, which is another thing. If you're going to establish that these characters are LGBT, which another hurdle some people fail to leap, but also that show Kippo, which I heard recently ended. I never watched it, but I've heard good things about it. It was able to at least jump one hurdle in having a character just explicitly state that they're gay. That's good. However, another problem is when you tease two characters who are LGBT and kind of like hype them up to be a couple, and then not follow through with that until the very last episode. Trust me, will they, won't they is a problem in straight ships as well as gay ships, but it's more noticeable in gay ships because we get so fewer of them. Yeah, it happened. I think it happened in Kippo, sadly. I know it happened in She-Ra, and we're going to talk about She-Ra in just a second. It happened with Korra, as I previously stated. There wasn't really any build-up to that, but,
I feel like to a degree, Miraculous Ladybug even has some of that. To a degree.
Yeah,
the show
sadly.
hasn't ended, but it does have some of that.
Yeah, if those two I know the 2 characters you're talking about, if they get together before, not even before the last episode, before the last season, I will be shocked. But yeah.
They seem to allude to it pretty strongly, at least for now. So we'll see, given the movie and like the New York branch off that they did, or at least the heroes world that they're gonna do. I guess we'll see what they'll do with it.
Okay. Now, as I stated, there's prevalence, and then there's quality, and quality can be for some reason, is a big problem for some people. Because like you can argue that oh well they can't be like blatant and upfront about it because then they'll get complaints from like xenophobic, like homophobic parents or transphobic parents, or they won't be able to syndicate in China. Just a disclaimer: I hate the China excuse. After what's been happening with COVID, I refuse to scapegoat China for anything. Mm-hmm. We're getting a little political here, but I'm gonna dial it back just a bit. Okay. Now you could argue that they have to be like subtle about it, which they honestly don't, because Kippo just had a character saying that they're gay, and the Owl House has been doing its thing pretty good. I mean, it's still struggling to leave the hurdle of will they, won't they, but I have faith that it will. Mm. So yeah, you argue that they can't be very blatant about it. You can argue that they have to be cautious and watch they're walking. The creators are still walking on eggshells, and the executives, blah 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 blah. But that argument kind of loses steam when you remember Voltron, who brought on a gay character and then killed them in the same episode. And then the creator's like, oh, but that's all the studio would allow. When the studio came out and said the executives, as well as the advisors, the creators hired as LGBT consultants, all told them not to do this. And they ignored them. And then they put the blame on the studio when people didn't like it. Since then, I have been hesitant to believe any claim of someone saying, oh, well, they have to do this or the studio will like cancel the show. But even if you want to make that argument on why LGBT representation can't be as prevalent as we might like, there's still the matter of quality. And quality is where we jump back to She-Ra. Now, I have not watched a whole lot of She-Ra. I've seen like one episode, and then I saw the confession at the finale. That's all I saw. KP, have you watched She-Ra?
Yes, and now
okay.
And also
answer one question.
Go ahead.
Answer one question. Yeah, sorry. Answer one question for me, and I'll answer one question for me. How many times across the 5 seasons have we seen very, very explicit imagery of Catra and Adora beating the out of each other?
A lot.
Yeah, okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. Basically, the problem with Catra and Adora in She-Ra and the Princess of Power, they're basically gay Raylo. They're basically gay Raylo, where
right.
they
Wow.
yeah. It involves these two characters beating the tar out of each other. I should have said tar beginning. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to censor that later. But yeah, and yet somehow they think that it's okay to pair these two as a couple. And sadly, that's not the only egregious misstep that the show has made. Mm-hmm. There's Double Trouble, who is canonically non-binary and also canonically a shape-shifting lizard person. Mm-hmm. Now, non-binary people being shapeshifters is another example of othering, which is a problem. And there's just that little anti-Semitism cherry on top, because lizard people is an anti-Semitic slur.
The lizard people are running the government.
There was a time where people would say, the lizard people are controlling the banks or the government, or insert scapegoat here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a problem with Double Trouble. That's a problem with the Cachadora ship. That's the problem with LGBT representation in general. It tends to value quantity over quality, but we're not even getting that much quantity, is the thing.
Yeah. Can I jump in about She-Ra too?
Please.
Okay, so to Mikaela's point, like the whole She-Ra stuff is ambiguous, I guess, because they were like, I'm not trying to justify it but I think from from the narrative's perspective, like Adora and Catra didn't know. Well, Catra did, but Adora didn't know I don't know. It's confusing. But they do have both two males. Both dads are gay, and they're shown in multiple episodes. Being affectionate to each other, like hand kissing and like holding hands and stuff like that. And they also have a female. Two of the princesses are married to each other, and there's a whole arc in the 5th season about that, as well as like they're shown kissing like several times. So I get adoring Catcher, and I get the lack of consequences for Catcher in general for toxic behavior. Like I talk about that in the main review, but there also is some other stuff in there too. So
That is great to hear. That's great to hear. And it just kind of makes me sad that we didn't get a relationship like that as the main focus. Like if those characters, like the fact that they're in multiple episodes is great. If we had a relationship like those two couples had is in the main cast and like part of the main focus, then I could say Sheer would have fantastic representation.
Yeah.
As it stands, those things are still good. It's just Double Trouble and the Cachadora ship still bring it back.
Yeah, that's valid.
I had something else to say real quick, and if you want to jump to topics pretty soon, I'm more than willing to. I'm trying to remember what another thing I was thinking about till you brought it up. What was it? Goodness gracious.
I'm trying to think of the other rep. Like, well, I think Marceline and Bubblegum has like had a similar problem where.
Oh yeah, Marceline Bubblegum. That is another problem. It was ship teased until the very last episode, and that's just not good storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But
better.
God, I know there was something else I wanted to talk about, but what was it?
Meanwhile, there's Has-Been Hotel, where right out of the gate we have Charlie and Vaggie. So I don't know.
I do like that. I do love Charlie and Vaggie. I just wish they were a little more explicit, because I've seen people react to that pilot. It's like, oh, are they good? Are they friends? Are they sisters? And they never. Oh God.
They never clarify it. Yeah.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, there's that episode of The Owl House where we're introduced to Edith's sister Lilith. Now before, and I've had this confirmed with other people who've watched the show. Before Lilith is confirmed as Edith's sister in that episode, people see like the kind of like the lingering animosity between them and assume they're just bitter exes.
Right.
And then you hear them confirmed sisters. Like, oh no, I take it back. I don't want this to be frozen.
Yeah, the internet running wild with Anna Elsa was just, I'm like, no. They were established sisters from the beginning. No, get out.
That's part of their arc.
Yeah, I was like, well, I mean, look at how like explicitly romantic they're acting. Surely Disney did this on purpose. Trust me, no. The writers are just stupid.
Oh Lord, Pete, do you want to jump in and say anything so far? Like, how do you like?
I was just gonna say, I am interested in what you have to say about representation, Pete, like specifically Native representation, because I'm probably just gonna be ignorant about this, but to my knowledge, the most prevalent Native rep I've seen in media is Chakotay from Deep Space Nine, which I've heard has its problems, as well as Tommy in Power Rangers Zero, which I hear also has its problems.
I'm actually not familiar with those two. I'll have to look into that. Unfortunately, most of my, I guess, examples, mostly here come from Disney and Pixar, because I'm a Disney Pixar freak.
Oh, of course.
So
aren't we all?
So like it's definitely changed over the years. So like, my sister is an even bigger Disney freak than I am, and she once set out on this quest to like, and this is before like streaming was really popular and really prevalent. So before we had any streaming services, she went on this quest to like watch every single Disney Animation Studios film, including like the rare ones and hard to find ones and stuff. So she set on this quest many years ago, and we kind of joined her in her viewing sessions for a lot of these, because we were curious too, and I hadn't. So like when she would get a new DVD in that she hadn't seen before in the Disney canon, I would be curious too and stuff. So anyway, so Peter Pan.
I was gonna be like, is this leading to Peter Pan?
I can already see where this is coming.
Oh no, I forgot about Peter Pan.
So as a little kid, I had the like the Disney sing-alongs and stuff as a little kid. So I had heard like some of the like songs from Peter Pan or something. Not that one that we're going to, but like some of the others. So I was like, oh, Peter Pan, I get it. He's like a flying guy who like like takes these kids to like a fantasy land. Okay, that sounds cute and fun. So I didn't know much about Peter Pan going into it. So we put in the DVD, and Grace, my sister, and I start watching it, and then like my mom's also in the room. We're all like, okay, let's check this out. I've never seen this like in one sitting before. I've seen clips. I've heard of Peter Pan.
The poor people who don't know what we're talking about yet.
Okay, so for those of you, I'm guessing a lot of you know, but like for those of you who don't, so Peter Pan like comes from this like fantasy sort of like what island in the sky, I guess we could call it. Is that fair? This kind of fantasy land called Neverland, and then like he takes these kids who are from like London, you know, boring reality, and takes them on this magical journey to Neverland, and they have cool adventures and whatever. And it's all like based on a book and stuff. So they go to Neverland, and like Neverland is this like fantasy world where there are like pirates and stuff. Like, ooh, pirates! That we don't have pirates. And then there's like mermaids. Like, ooh, mermaids! We don't have mermaids either. And then like pixies, like all these fantasy creatures. And also, apparently, one of the fantasy creatures in Neverland are American Indians. It's like, what?
Oh god. Don't they say that word with the hard J too? Don't they?
I don't remember it that clearly, but maybe they might have.
Okay.
But yeah. And so
you got your typical mythical creatures: fairies, mermaids.
Fairies, mermaids, pirates, Indians. Wait, what's going on? Wait, what? So there.
And like.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say from what I remember, they're pretty like stereotypical too. Like the whole like,
oh dang, yeah,
you know, red paint, the feathers, and the mouth thing, and the smoking tobacco,
yes.
Which they kept in Peter Pan for some reason.
Yeah, like the peace pipes and like everything you think you've heard, like and I don't know, was this in the 50s? Like what?
Yeah, 50s.
I think
it was like the 50s-ish. And there were like so many stereotypes going around back then. Just the peace pipes and the headdresses and just mixing stuff from all these like indigenous things. Like, oh gosh. So yeah, Indians apparently are a fantasy race in Neverland. And so we're watching this for the first time. My sister and I are watching this for the first time, and you know, we meet Tinkerbell, we meet the Pixies, we meet the pirates, and all this stuff, and then we meet the Indians, and like I forget exactly what happens. I think like there's like an Indian princess, which is like that's not a thing. We didn't have like royalty systems.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Lauren. Didn't they make Tiger Lily is the name of the princess? Did they make Tiger Lily like an official princess at one point, and they like dropped her?
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's almost like she's like, I guess you want to say like almost like in the forgotten princess category because at one point, yeah, I guess they were categorizing her as such, but wow. I've never seen her ranked up there in the Disney royalty category. Even though Pocahontas gets up there, even though she's not a princess, she's just the daughter of the chief. So
that's another thing we can talk about, Pocahontas.
Oh yeah,
really.
I'm getting there too. But yeah,
like, don't you worry, I have a list.
I literally have a list. So but yeah, so we're watching Peter Pan, and then like I think they like save Tiger Lily at some point or something, and they get rewarded, and they have this like this powwow or whatever. I don't know what they called it, but they have this party, I guess, with all the Indians, and of course all the stereotypical stuff happens, and they go into this huge musical number, and like this is where like my jaw starts dropping. Like, I had no idea.
Especially when you hear what they're singing.
Yeah, and so there's this whole song about, like, I think it's called, like, What Makes the Red Man Red or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, just hearing that makes me clench.
Yeah, I know. And, like, it's like this Rudyard Kipling, like, tall tale about, like, why Indians have red skin. It's, like, just... And then it's this... And everyone's having a grand old time with this, like, just amazingly racist, like, caricature going on. And, like, I'm just my mouth is just wide open. Like, I had no idea what was in this. Like, and they use Peter Pan in like marketing and stuff for Disney and Tinkerbell's everywhere, and like I never knew like this was.
Yeah, the thing they do now for Disney Plus is
they have a warning.
They have this disclaimer that please don't censor our movies because we want to keep them alive to teach people. And I'm just okay.
At the same time, we'll still
Jan.
not put Sound of the South ever onto Disney Plus. So there's that.
I think they will eventually, but I think the whole Black Lives Matter stuff isn't really timed well for that right now.
Oh God! And they took the crows out of the Dumbo remake. Good call.
Good call. Very good call.
Yeah, Lord, I'm trying to think.
So yeah, Peter Pan.
I mean, it didn't make the Dumbo remake any better, but
right.
It seemed like a no shit thing to change.
Yeah.
I remember when Dumbo came out, one of my 2D because sometimes I take 2D classes to keep fresh, but anyway, so like the last 2D class I was taking, my professor gave us like a whole spiel about like why the new Dumbo sucks, and he's just like, I saw it and I hate everything. So and I'll probably get into this later, like on the main channel or something like that, like just breaking down like animation principles and like why you don't like why like live action stuff and depictions just doesn't work is because like you can't just make a live action elephant and then be like, lol, it's Dumbo, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Give that elephant some baby blue eyes. There you go.
Hey, it's Kim Possible. We found a 15-year-old on the street and made her dye her hair red. We got it right. And I'm like, oh man. So
we found regular old lions. That one's Simba. Can't you tell?
Can't you tell from his distinct personality?
Just the blink stares on all the lions. Oh gosh.
Look how much love is in Nala's eyes, in those cold, dead, emotionless eyes.
Can't you feel the love during the day? Anyway.
They should have mocapped Beyonce's face.
But yeah, so Peter Pan was one of my first experiences with like how it used to be done in animation, like in the 1950s or so. So yeah, hard 0 out of 10 on that one. And yeah, it's just kind of what you said about like the othering kind of thing, like portraying like American Indians as like a fantasy race. And I'm like,
oh
dang.
yeah. LGBT people are not the only ones who have to worry about othering.
So definitely can relate to that. And that's kind of also like why the mascots on like sports teams. That's why that's kind of a big thing, because it's like it's like
I remember that.
It's like
I was like, I remember they were like, we're not going to change the name of the Redskins no matter what, and then like Black Lives Matter happens. They're just like, oh well, I guess we have to now, and I'm just like, no shit, like come on,
yeah, and
come on, man.
Shout out to the companies who like made them do it, because like the owner of that team, like really was like really not an ally at all. He's really set in his ways, and he only did it because the companies like refused to like sell merchandise and stuff. So shout out to the companies for listening to the people who were calling for that, because dang.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's that othering. It's that like we're an exotic, distant fantasy race of creatures. It's like, no, we're people. We're just freaking normal people. And so moving on to like Pocahontas. That was like the 90s, wasn't it? Like 90s, late 90s?
Yeah. 96.
Yes.
No, sorry, 90.
That
95, sorry.
Yeah, that was, if I'm remembering correctly, that was done by Disney's A-Team, because they were counting on that to be their magnum opus.
Correct.
Right.
That worked out great.
So Pocahontas, like, so we had many decades since Peter Pan. Some things have gotten better by the 90s, and so they were like, okay, let's do Pocahontas. Let's do an American Indian story. And they actually got Russell Means involved in it, and Russell Means is one of the big like towering figures of the civil rights movement, the Native American rights movement. around the 60s and such. Russell Means was a really, really powerful indigenous activist, and they got him involved in the Pocahontas project, and like he actually voiced Pocahontas' father.
Chief Powhatan.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, they're trying to do this, and I think at the time, this was really welcomed. Like Russell Means was really excited about this. He was like, I think he still defends it to this day, actually. I think he was really excited about it, and a lot of Native Americans, from what I've read, were really excited about this at the time because like it was the first like major release, and for kids too, with like a wide audience, a general audience, protagonist who was Native American. That was like big. Like it's like we haven't seen that, and so I think at the time it was really celebrated as inclusive and stuff. Nowadays, like looking back on it, like I think more people are likely to point out all the historical, like the crazy differences in the movie versus the actual story of Pocahontas, which was really messed up. In real life.
They fixed it in the sequel, right? She meets John Rolfe. It's all better.
Oh God.
Lauren, you didn't see it, but that physically pained me when you said that.
Oh gosh. So yeah, Pocahontas like mixed, like maybe 5 out of 10, maybe or something. Like
you tried sticker, you know.
Yeah, and they really did like getting Russell Means involved. Like that's a really good effort. That was a really good.
Yeah.
Like Russell Means was a controversial guy. He was like, he was demanding justice. He was demanding equality. Like he was a pretty serious activist, and he got people mad. So having him on board was, I think, a brave thing to do.
Right.
And so I think at the time it was, probably a welcome thing. Very cool to have a protagonist like that.
Yeah, I think like the takeaway as far as Pocahontas, from my understanding, besides all the historical inaccuracies, like Pocahontas had a pretty crappy life, and John Smith was a creep.
Yep.
Among other things, but
He was also not a blonde Mel Gibson either.
Aw, man.
I mean, if he's voiced by Mel Gibson, he's still a creep.
Okay. Here's my fact before I go into my tangent. But I was convinced, like, if you think about it, Mel Gibson has a very similar speaking voice to Tim Allen. So I was convinced that he was Tim Allen, and I have memories of physically checking the credits of my Pocahontas like VHS tape because I was just like, because this is how my brain worked, even like before we had the like good internet, where I'm just like, that's the guy who played Buzz. So now I'll watch Pocahontas and be like, oh my god, like it's like just pretend it was Tim Allen the whole time. It's more tolerable that way. But anyway,
the fan fiction we deserve is Pocahontas and Buzz Lightyear getting together.
Oh, God.
I'm like picturing the movie now with John Smith does those like those like through the whole thing.
Yeah, like Mel Gibson
Tim
has
the
a very
Toolman Taylor.
I'm gonna fix the native world with my white. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh God, we're going to the bad place.
This is the bad place. Anyway, that's my good place reference. But yeah, it's kind of like the attempt was good, but it's still just by basing the story off an unhistorical event. Like plus like. Generally, like, probably just don't do, like, animated movies based on historical characters. Like, there was something trending, like a month or two ago where they made, like, a new live-action Anastasia where they completely, like, watered down the history, and it's just, like, it's another one of, like, those, like, the ones where she survived but also, like, bad, too,
right.
So...
There is no musical Rasputin.
And, of course,
like,
the amazing animated Titanic movies, of course.
The classics.
The legend goes on.
Oh my god. Legend won't go on.
The feel-good Disney movie of the year, Anne Frank.
Yeah, but anyway, it kind of, it kind of whitewashes not whitewashes in like actually whitewash. Well, maybe for Pocahontas, but like when you do that in general, like like when you do like the Russian historical history, like everyone's kind of white there, but it kind of takes the sting out of the story because you're just like, oh, it all worked. You have to like have a 3-act structure with clear good and bad characters that were actual real people, and then like there has to be like a happy ending even though there wasn't. So you think everything's fine, then you look it up. Same thing with kind of what happened with Saving Mr. Banks a little bit. I mean, they left it up to interpretation.
Right.
But, when you look back to it, it was like, oh, they didn't do this. Like, that
Exactly.
wasn't what they said.
Yeah.
P.L.
But
Travers
they knew...
did not go to Disneyland. P.L. Travers also hated the Mary Poppins movie. Her teary-eyed at the end there was basically her not going, oh, wow, this is beautiful. She's like, wow, you disgraced me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then like even then we have to think about like, oh, they waited till she died and then they got the rights and then they made Mary Poppins Return. Good move, Disney. Oh. Oof.
Which
but anyway,
was nowhere near as good, but the animated stuff was fine.
yeah, I got to see some of the concept art before the movie came out technically. So like it was only like 2 weeks because like one of the guys from the movie from the 2D part was just like, hey, we're gonna like talk about, you look at my character designs from it, and I'm just like, don't tell anyone, and I'm like, you got it. So
I am shocked to this day that Tempest Shadow was Mary Poppins.
yeah, Emily Blunt is like, she's good actress.
Yes.
Good 10 out of 10.
Yes.
But anyway, let's see, where was I going with this? But yeah, I think like unless like the story of this historical content is not very different from the actual content where there's no drastic changes, because in that way, you introduce people to concepts and be like, well, this person might have had a happy ending, but like history in general doesn't really have a lot of those. I mean, on a cynical point of view, but
Yeah.
I don't know, just like,
Maybe don't. If you want to make an animated historical fiction, don't make an animated historical fiction intended for general audiences, that being family, that being children. Don't base it on major real historical events. Do what Road to El Dorado did.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's actually a really good example because it was one of those ways where they showcased them going and exploring this whole world and this part of history and this time period and showing like these historical figures, but without it being directly, okay, this is exactly how it happened. It was I think that's why
they were like adjacent to like Cortez and those guys.
And I like that they didn't shirk away from saying like, Cortez was like one bad dude that you don't want to mess with, and but at the same time, because of the tone of Road to El Dorado, they carried it out. Like, it took me years to realize that the Road to El Dorado, the title itself, was derived from the Road to series from like the 30s and the 40s. That it was a comical adventure series, and it was always around 2 male leads and a female who would always accompany them, and they would always do slapstick stuff together and get themselves in and out of trouble. But they were traveling everywhere to do that. And that's exactly what they were trying to do with this. It wasn't something that are like, this is exactly how it happened in history. They're saying, no, these people just happened to be here at a point in history, and all this crazy stuff happened. And it's entirely fantastical with some real elements in it. It's not trying to be history. It's just saying it's history adjacent.
Yeah. That was a fun movie. I wasn't a huge fan of like how like the white guys were like saved the village like themselves in the end. Like,
oh yeah, looking back, that's a big
that was
problem.
a little iffy. But like, I mean, very fun movie. The characters were great. But yeah, like there were a few issues. I like you guys said, Cortez being portrayed as like a villain, like definitely like they didn't even get like close to how villainous that guy was.
Exactly.
Like, dang. But like, yeah, the history adjacent like often it is less controversial over time. Definitely.
So I think,
and I think for like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I think later on, when was Lilo and Stitch? Was that like 2002,
Yes.
2003?
Yeah, 2002.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me and Lauren know like our our Disney filmology like in our sleep. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. You're prepared.
it's like we want a podcast about animation like for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like you got the whole textbook in your head. That's awesome. The so Lilo and Stitch, I think, is one of the best I think indigenous representation examples out there. Like they're like a Native Hawaiian family, and they're normal people. Like they're in our modern world. They're normal people. They have TV. They like Elvis. Like they have jobs. They like, and like the struggles they face are just normal people struggles, and like that I think is incredibly just like that's really nice to see.
Yeah.
I think that was done very well. I don't know if I really have any complaints at all, actually. Like it was about them as people. It was about their journey. It was about this particular story, and it wasn't stereotypical. It wasn't stereotypical. It was actually typical. It was actually just typical of what a normal people would do in a situation like this.
And I think about that deleted scene often of the
tourists,
the
hello,
tsunami
native
siren.
girl. Yeah.
and then she's like, and then she's just like, tourists, prepare to die.
I love her so much.
Oh, but don't you guys remember from those two no names from Twitter? Lilo's an abuser, apparently.
Don't get me started on that. It was
Oh yeah, Twitter has a way of ruining anything it wants to.
If anything, what I liked in terms of of good discourse that I saw was people analyzing Lilo and her behavior. It's she's not just young. It may be that she had she might have had learning disabilities or stuff like that too. So it's like they're saying people were like, I recognize this when I was this little and I had these problems and that's why I identify with her so much and why I did when I first saw her in theaters. And I'm like, okay, so there's something more there, and I think that's what's particularly powerful about her is that she's very much a real little girl. She's not a spoiled brat.
Yes.
She is a girl put into a horrible situation. She and her sister, and especially her sister, having to try and make ends meet when it's just her and Lilo you even have the hints of her giving up on her career. She wanted to be a professional surfer and actually was an award-winning competitive surfer, and she had to give that up to take care of Lilo after the parents died. Like, that's, you see it, it doesn't have to be said. It's shown in the background of her trophies and her ribbons and her posters and everything. So it's like seeing that she was a very real person, grounded in her life on the island and with her family, and seeing how devoted she is to it. That's very real. Especially when Cobra shows up to basically make her stress levels skyrocket. But
Welcome to the Lilo and Stitch podcast. Anyway, so Pete, how do you feel about Moana then?
Moana, I think again, it was sort of mixed with Pocahontas, but I think they did a very good job with Moana in general. And again, you'll have to ask the Pacific Islander sort of community to get a really accurate take on it. But Moana, I think from what I've read and such, getting Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander people involved in the casting, I think was a good idea. They set up what do they call it? They sort of set up a committee, a cultural sensitivity committee when they went into this story, and invited people from Samoa and those islands and such to make sure they were doing it as right as they possibly could. And from what I've heard and read, it was received quite well in general from a lot of the Pacific Islander community. Obviously, there are some things, there were some flaws. I think there was an instance in which Disney sort of there was an instance in which I think Disney was marketing some like Halloween costume. I think it was like a Maui. I think Maui had like a Halloween costume or something.
Yeah.
And Maui's like actually like a demigod in actual actual religion. So that I think they had to backtrack on that. So it's always tricky when you're dealing with a culture that's not your own. So there were definitely some flaws and some missteps. But I think the inclusion of Samoan and Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian cast and writers, that was I think it's getting better over time. Definitely, people are including the actual culture that is still alive today and consulting them. That's a huge important step. I think having that one song, "We Know the Way," I think "We Know the Way" was the song, and it was like in both English and I think Samoan. That I think was a beautiful moment. I think that was I think that was a beautiful moment. It was this culture wasn't portrayed as like fantasy people or anything. They had real problems. This was a real community. She had real aspirations and such. I think they're portrayed positively, and that I think is getting better over time. Starting from the incredibly disrespectful Peter Pan back in the 50s, and slowly looking at how Indigenous characters are portrayed over time. Pocahontas was like the first positive portrayal on a major film, which was cool. There were flaws, huge flaws, but like
gotta start
having
somewhere,
a positive having that positive representation was a great first step, I think. And then over time, Lilo and Stitch I think was done well. Moana was done well. And now we've got like there's even a PBS Kids show now with a Native Alaskan community, and they're in the modern world. They have computers, they have smartphones and everything. Like, we're still here, and that's a huge important thing to get across. We're not fantasy creatures from Neverland. We're not some old remnant like the Pony Express that is no longer here. Like, we're still here. Our nations are still here, and I think people are getting it over time slightly better. There's still a long way to go, but the inclusion is awesome, and more representation is always awesome.
Yeah. I feel like, and as we continue forward, we are even seeing with like Raya and the Last Dragon. We'll have to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for it,
Definitely.
especially when it seems like when it's supposed to be representative of Southeast Asian culture, which is there's so many people and so many different traditions and cultures and stories and traditional garments and all these different ways of life that are all a part of this community, and they're going to try and summarize it as best as they can in the story, especially it is in a more fantastical setting, well, at least with the existence of dragons in the world, but I remain hopeful for it to see where we go with it.
Yeah. And
it's also the opportunity that Kelly Marie Tran deserves after the backlash she got. So
Oh, was she voicing the main character?
yeah, they recast the lead. I think something happened with casting for the lead originally, and then Kelly came in and they're like, we could give this to you.
Oh God, I'm so happy to hear that. She is wonderful, and she deserves good things.
Exactly. But what do you think? I think maybe what I like to think of, where do you think, so as the media landscape continues to change, what are some the kinds of stories that we would look forward to? What are some of the ones you'd like to see, and how you'd like to see it portrayed in the media, as as we're seeing it across platforms as well, not just like in theaters, but we're also seeing on streaming services and online, and I guess that encourages independent creators to tell stories as well. So what are some stories that you'd like to see from each of you going forward?
Honestly, in terms of LGBT rep, I would be totally content with a slice of life sitcom just featuring a married lesbian couple. Just them just like starting the story together and just going through daily life as a couple, like as most sitcom couples that aren't predicated on hyping up relationships like Friends or How I Met Your Mother. But yeah, like maybe add a fantastical element to it. Maybe make it sci-fi. Maybe make a lesbian detective series. I'm not sure. Like I'm flexible. Like on like the details. But so long as like the two leads are very sapphic and very wholesome and very into each other, like Gomez and Morticia levels of into each other, I'd be fine.
That's goals right there.
Yes.
That sounds really cool.
Yes.
And how about you, Pete?
Oh man, like more indigenous writers would be great. More inclusion, really. And you know, again, like you were talking about, like history being portrayed in like actual historical events being portrayed in animation. Like there are some cool stories that have happened in Native American history. It's not all, you know. It's there is a lot of sadness about what happened, but like there are some bright moments through all that. Part of me wants to see someone try that. Now, of course, you don't know how it might go, but like there are some bright moments. For the Navajo people, actually, in the 1860s, the U.S. government rounded up like Navajo people with the intent to put them on like a reservation, and so basically Kit Carson and a bunch of the U.S. military were sent to the Navajo land and basically force marched like all the Navajo to a concentration camp on the prairie, and like it was incredibly painful, incredibly sad. A lot of people died, and the reservation they tried to create for the Navajo people on the prairie was just totally like the land wasn't fruitful and like the nutrition was terrible. Like it was just horrible. But like there were some Navajo leaders who spoke out and actually petitioned the government, and like Manuelito was a Navajo guy who was really good at speeches and writing and just public speaking and such. And he actually went to Washington and petitioned the government really eloquently, like, we're dying out here. This reservation is not for us. Just let us go back home. And the government looked into it and actually agreed with him. And the Navajo people got to go home. And you know, there are bright moments of resistance. There are a few bright moments of resistance in the history, and part of me wants to see those stories portrayed. Like it's not all doom and gloom. Like there's a lot of doom and gloom, but like there are bright moments, and that would be cool to see. Again, like it's not just we're victims. It's not just we're people. We're people, and like we survive. You know. I would like to see someone try. Again, it depends on who does it. If it's led by indigenous people, an effort to tell a story like that, and there are tons of other stories of resistance from other nations as well. But like, I would like to see someone try that, and if it's led by an indigenous team of writers, I think it could be really cool.
Yeah.
And also more, I'm always here for more just normal indigenous people in the modern world, just living their best life. That's always cool too.
Well, in terms of negatives, you could argue that, in terms of negative consequences of the internet regarding representation, especially in terms of LGBT representation, it does give cause for writers to be very lazy and pulling a Rowling with their work. That being, oh yeah, this character was gay, and I'm confirming it on this Twitter rather than in the actual text of the series. Look how good a writer I am. Now, what was I going to say? Noelle Stevenson did confirm that Bo had two dads on Twitter first, but she then put them in the show. That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. Like, if you're just like, if you do like that stuff, it's okay. Like, but like keeping that like explicit information like on social media rather than in the text of the show, that's just lazy. And it does run the risk of giving a loud voice to bigots, but bigots tend to cause quite a bit of noise anyway. Like any kid throwing a fit, they're gonna demand you get their attention. So how easy or how hard it is kind of like is ultimately nebulous, because another thing the Owl House is notorious for is pissing off Karens. First for being witchcraft. First for trying to indoctrinate the young people into devil worship, which I thought we kind of moved past from. We like culturally kind of like accept like the notion of devil worship isn't really like a problem anymore. It's not something most people are gonna care about. So it already got flack for that, and then Karen's got like gave more flack for enchanting Gromfright. And I was like, well, I can't imagine that Dana Terrace is too bothered by this. And she, to her credit, she is an absolute boss when handling this kind of stuff on Twitter. When hearing complaints about how explicitly inappropriate Luz and Amity are behaving, I was like, oh wow, what kind of person are you if you think two girls holding hands is inappropriate? But it does. Yeah, what was I gonna say? The internet does unfortunately give like a louder voice to bigots, but so long as the creative team has a good head on their shoulders and know what feedback to listen to, what to ignore, it should be fine. They just have to also make sure not to take the easy route and just confirm everything later on Twitter.
Right.
That should know. That should bet. And don't confirm it just in interviews either, because yeah, same problem.
So, for like social media and like how this relates to like representation, like as you said, social media is like there's a lot of negative stuff going on with social media and how it affects our minds, how it affects our emotions, how it just the nature of social media is like it's incredibly easy to like have your echo chamber and such. So like a lot of the opinions you'll see on Twitter are like very like amplified, I guess. I don't know what the word is. Just intensified, amplified. It's not representative of everyone in real life. It's and again, social media is designed, it encourages that, which is not always healthy for having a conversation.
Pete,
yeah.
Could I try to sum up what you're trying to say, what I think you're trying to say, and like hear you expand on that?
Yeah, go for it.
I think you're trying to say that white Twitter is especially loud and tends to be one of the voices that creators hear the most.
That's one of the many things. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, I apologize if I misunderstood the point you're trying to make. That was just my immediate takeaway.
Yeah, that's one of the many effects of it. But like another thing is like if you don't know any indigenous people, or really anyone of any minority, any group that is a minority, if you don't have anyone in that group in your social media feed, there's a good chance you'll never hear anything from that group. From anything from their perspective. There's a lot of people who like try to how do I put this? There's a lot of people who try to imagine what indigenous people are thinking about something without actually consulting indigenous people. Like there are a lot of people who sort of get offended with the term Indian or American Indian, and like there are many indigenous people who share that opinion, but not everyone. And it would be good if people got a perspective from an indigenous person, but you're not going to get that if your Twitter only has non-indigenous people. or if your media diet doesn't include anything by indigenous creators. And then like the mascots issue, that, oh gosh, that was done to death. That was so painful. Like, there's so many more important indigenous stories to cover. Why are we talking about football? But I mean, it's one of them. It's important, but it's not the most important thing. Like, there's water rights, there's land rights, but football, okay, sure. But like, it's not the worst thing to talk about, but there's more too. But like, a lot of people were sort of not consulting indigenous people themselves on what we think of like the mascot thing or the terminology of what you should call us or whatever. And so that's an issue. Another thing on social media is like, when they refer to indigenous people, they often refer to us like as like a broad category, like American Indian or Native American or something like that, without referring to like someone's specific nation. Like, I'm a Navajo guy. Like, I am a Native American person, but like I like don't identify as closely with that broad category. It's like calling a French person a European. Like, you're technically right, but like they're probably a lot more proud of being French than European broadly. Like there's a whole continent. There's a whole continent of like, there's like 300 like different Indian nations in North America, and like anytime you can specifically, like if you're talking about a specific person, like, oh, my Navajo friend or my Cherokee my Cherokee boss or whatever. Like, if you can refer to the specific nation that they are from, that is always really cool. That's always helpful because each nation's culture is different. So when you, like, if you're talking about a bunch of different nations broadly, then of course Native American's like cool and whatever, or American Indian or Indigenous American, like that's cool. But like, it's really cool if you take the time to learn the specific nation someone is from and refer to that, because that nation is much more meaningful than the broad category that goes across the whole continent. But yeah, social media is crazy. It's just, what do we do? Just be respectful and, always be ready to learn more. You're never done learning, so always be ready to learn more. And yeah, that's and, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on. Unless you guys have any other closing thoughts you want to get in there for all two of the masses that listen to the podcast. No, I mean there's a little bit more than that, but I give myself.
I do have some closing thoughts. Let's see.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good thing Pete said, that you never stop learning, because there's one thing in terms of representation given to us by people who consider themselves tolerant and culturally enlightened, is that they kind of think there's nothing left for them to learn. Mm-hmm. And when someone presents the evidence that they have something left to learn, then they feel like their quality as a person, like their morality, is being called into question, and they kind of like block it. Mm-hmm. They kind of block it from their minds, mm-hmm. like specifically because they can't really cope with the idea that they aren't as enlightened as they like to think they are. Mm-hmm. And a good thing to remember about enlightenment, especially in terms of being of giving quality representation in media, is that there's always going to be more for you to learn. You're never done trying to enlighten yourself. It's an ongoing process, like training. Now, in terms of the closing thoughts I had prepared, when you're considering to do representation for your creative work, be that LGBT, anything regarding race, religion, ethnicity, national background, just keep in mind your target audience, because a lot of the problems I have with LGBT rep in modern media stems from the fact that most of the examples I'm labeling are coming from children's properties. Now, if your jam is watching two emotionally maladjusted women beating the ever-loving snot out of each other, but then somehow falling in love after that, If that's your thing, then fine. Just keep it away from the kids. Make your own YA or adult erotica out of that on your own time, and keep it to that audience, keep it to that demographic, and away from the kiddie winks. Also with racial representation, you want to do a historical, if you want to do an animated story about like a historical figure, well, depending on the contents of the figure and the historical moment you're talking about, you're probably not going to want to package that as a family-friendly movie. Just keep your atrocities and your abuse glorification out of kids Netflix. Stop trying to sneak your kinks in.
I don't know, how do I follow that up? Yeah, I mean, like kids entertainment, it's definitely something to think about. Like you got kids watching, and they're going to take, they're gonna take lessons from it. Whether you're trying to preach something or not, they're going to hear it. So be careful in what messages your thing sends to the kids and adults that are watching it, because it'll get internalized. And if you put your lesson into the proper context, that's cool. But yeah, be careful. Like creating stories is not creating stories that people pay attention to is not super easy. It is like there's a lot of soul involved. There's a lot of you're always saying something, even if you're not trying to. So be careful, and take the time to do it right, and your audience will be the better for it, and you will be the better for it. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good point to end on. So, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. To that's it. This is the podcast.
I think friendos should plug themselves as well. Where can you find people on, and where can you find yourselves on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on any of them? Let them know.
Okay, well, for me, you can go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mikaila Turkleson. Mikaila spelled with an I instead of a Y. People always get that wrong. But, and if you want to spell Turkleson, well, good luck. But you can also follow me on Twitter at TurklesonTia. It's TurklesonTia. Or follow me at Miss Mikail on Tumblr. Or just go to my Patreon, Patreon.com/Mikaila Turkleson. And yeah, that's how you can find me and scream at me about how wrong I am.
And I, Round Trip, I am, that's it. That's all you have to type in. On YouTube, I am Round Trip. Just look for the very badly drawn pony, the stick figure pony. That is me. And if you want me to very stupidly summarize a My Little Pony episode, I am your guy. My content is very, very not intellectual. It's very easy to watch, I think. It's very stupid, so I hope you'll have fun with me as I just goof off. You can also follow me on Twitter at RoundTripGuy, no spaces.
Okay, and out of curiosity, Pete, what are you doing now since ponies are over? Are you just kind of catching up with your episodes?
I am...
For now. Dun, dun, dun.
For now. I am...
The return of the pony.
I'm considering some ideas. I'm looking at... possibly, maybe, no promises, maybe looking at some prior seasons. Maybe we could have some fun with that. Also, there's a bunch of crazy Equestria Girls stuff out there that we could also possibly have some fun with. So yeah, I'm writing stuff down. I'm not sure exactly what's next, but stick ponies are still coming.
Don't worry, I'm not losing my religion yet. Okay, so I'll do the ending spiel about the podcast. So again, thanks for listening. Hopefully these guys plugged things so you're listening because you like either Mikaila or Pete Davidson over there. But
what the heck?
yeah, so please subscribe to the main channel, because again, our views are like -5. I mean, the Owl House video is doing okay that we just released, so there's that. But yeah, turn your notifications on. Podcast comes out every week, Wednesday, usually, unless we do something wrong, which happens sometimes. And yeah, I think that's it. I think all the other social medias are plugged in the end for Lauren and I. So yeah, thanks for listening.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you both so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, KP. Thank you, Lauren. This was so fun.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I think this turned out a lot better than I expected. Between like, let's just get people and put them in, and then we're having intellectual conversations. Yay, we did it.
Oh no.
Yeah, thank you
Better than
guys for
expected,
your time. I think it was a good episode. So.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night or morning or day, everybody.
Toodles!
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Communication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.